I'm Dave Scott. I've been working in biomed, or I started in the military, so I was medical equipment repairer in the military, but for like 36 years now, and done a lot of these MD Expos. And I'm doing 2 sessions today, and it was both, it was kind of an idea that I had that I ran by the MD publishing people, was people that haven't presented at the MD Expo before, like partnering up with them and kind of coming up with a presentation. So I have Naka, who's been in the industry longer than I have. And then this afternoon I have another lady named Claire, and Claire's like a Tech 1, 22 years old and been in the biomed not that long. And I actually know her dad back at home. So I've known her dad for probably 30 years. I've known her dad, and I've known Claire when she was a little kid. So it's kind of cool to be able to help some other people do presentations. This is mostly Naka's presentation, not mine. So I've kind of not as well rehearsed as maybe Naka is, but that's a little history about me. As you know, Naka introduced me as the Biomed or Professional of the Year. So I won that, and I won the Amy Biomed of the Year before previously. So I feel like I've done quite a bit in my career, and I'm pretty happy with where I am as I'm getting closer and closer to retirement and the succession planning that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and so when running any business, regardless of the industry, most of us have talented people. We need to have talented people ready at the helm to move into key positions at a moment's notice. Even Fortune 500 companies can tank if they don't have key people ready to move into their key executive positions. But this presentation will begin by understanding what succession planning is and why it's essential for organizations. We'll then delve into the key components that make an effective succession plan, followed by best practices that organizations can implement to ensure the succession plan is successful. So succession plan by definition is a strategic plan for identifying and developing future leaders in your company to succeed current leaders when their positions become vacant. This is not just for top level executives, but for roles at all levels. So these are the reasons why succession planning is important. It enhances organizational stability, and it lowers risk mitigation. It allows for knowledge transfer between people within your organization and your future successors. And it also enhances employee engagement. Successful planning supports employee engagement by providing career development opportunities and future career paths for your employees. A recent study done by, what was his name? Sorry. I think it was Ralph, sorry. Anyway, a recent study that was done from about 2,500 managers across the nation. They wanted to know what were your struggles in trying to find replacements for people within your organization. And so these were the top 5 challenges that they found. One was the retirement of key employees. The other one was lack of succession candidates. They didn't have anybody within the organization to promote up. Potential successors, some of them had people that were ready to take the positions, but they didn't want them. They were either very content with where they were, or there were certain things happening in their lives that they weren't able to fulfill those role commitments at that time. Insufficient internal upskilling programs. They may have had some of the qualifications, but not all of the qualifications. A lot of our technicians, they're very good technically, but maybe on the customer service side or the business side, they don't have as much experience or knowledge. And so without having any type of a program in-house that addressed that issue, it posed for a lack of succession candidates. And then some just didn't have a plan at all. They just would wing it. You lose a technician or you lose an employee, you just
hope for
throw an ad out there, right? And you put out an ad, and hopefully somebody will apply and you'll be able to fill that position. But then you spend a lot of time weeding through resumes and all kinds of other obstacles rather, in trying to find a successful candidate. Is there anything you'd like to?
I think I'm good. Well, actually, one thing I wanted to add, I sat in the Women in HTM yesterday, and I was listening to Allison Wolford talk, and she was saying that she had a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, but they wanted her to have an associate degree in biomed, which kind of seemed like the opposite way of doing things. But she was wanting to get into management, and she said that she went and got her associate degree, but she also went and got her certification in CBET, Certified Biomedical Equipment Technician. So she said, I made sure I checked all the boxes. And sometimes I feel like that's something when you're getting into like higher up positions that you need to check those boxes. So if it is something that any of you are trying to get into, you know, like bachelor's degree, master's degree, so on, is probably not any higher than master's degree, but most director positions have like higher degree requirements.
Yeah, and sometimes the you know, the BMET 1s and 2s and 3s, they don't know what it is that's going to get them to the next level, and you need to help them with providing them with some type of a educational program or development program,
like a roadmap,
professional development program, so that they have a checklist that they can go, okay, check, 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 and as they achieve these things, and then are more positioned to take on those vacancies. Robert Half, I'm sorry, was the one that had done that study with the 2,500 hiring managers. So roughly 25%, this is according to the civil labor force, US Bureau of Labor Statistics, 25% of the current US labor force is made up of baby boomers born between 1946 and 1964, who will be retiring within the next 5 to 10 years. And I know that seems like it's a long time, you think, oh, 5 to 10 years, but when we think about where we were 5 years ago, that was COVID.
Yeah.
You know, and the world was shutting down. Now it seems like it was just not too long ago.
Doesn't seem that far away, that long ago.
So think of, you know, in 5 years from now, all these people retiring, what are you going to do? So while moving through the process, you're going to want to ask yourself 2 primary questions. One is, if the person currently in this position were to leave, how would that affect our day-to-day operations? And then what are the major obligations of this position that will most impact our company or department? So these are several resources that are available whenever you have a lack of succession candidates. LinkedIn, Indeed, Monster, Glassdoor, Career Builders, and htmjobs.com. David encouraged me to put that out there.
Naka has a story behind this picture, and he said he just changed jobs, so I'll let him kind of tell you a little bit about what's up with the picture.
Boss had kept asking me to be connected on LinkedIn, because I'm the president of the Indiana Biomedical Society, and he wanted to know what was going on in the Biomedical Society. I said, well, I'll just send you an email and let you know what's going on. No, let's get LinkedIn. Let's get. I'm like, no, I really don't want to do that. And so finally, I saw that they had these new banners, that they open to work and they're now hiring. So I thought I would go and I would put open to work, and then I'd go ahead and accept it. So when he went there, he would see that. So he saw it, he called me, I'd be like, whatever. So I took it off, you know, so it wasn't up there for very long. I don't even think it was like a whole day, you know, by the end of the day, I had already taken it off. But then later on that night, I get home and I get this phone call from California. You know, I live in Indiana. So I get this phone call from a recruiter friend who I hadn't talked to in almost a decade. And all of a sudden she goes, Naka, you still live in Indiana? I'm like, yeah, I still live in Indiana. She goes, how far is Fort Wayne from Marion? I'm like, I don't know, let me Google it. So I Googled it. Oh, they're about an hour south of here. And she goes, would you be interested in hearing about an opportunity I have out in Indiana? I'm like, I'm always open.
Open for work.
And so 11 days later, I was working for Crossville Healthcare as the administrative director at Marion Healthcare down in Marion, Indiana. So, and of course, all my friends were like, are you moving? I'm like, moving, it's an hour away. They're like, yeah, but it's so far. I'm like, no, but when I worked at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in LA, I lived 23 miles from the hospital. It took me 90 minutes to get to work every single day for 10 years. I'll drive an hour. And it's 58 miles an hour. Yeah, it's 58 miles, 58 minutes. I'm there, right down the highway. So it was a win-win situation for everybody. Now, dealing with successors who aren't interested in leadership. Did you want to take this one?
You can go ahead and I'll add a little bit to it at the end.
Okay. So with this one, you have, once you've established the overall talent needs necessary, you'd be better equipped to discover who your possible line of succession will be, most suitable candidates to approach with the opportunities for development. But you got to ask yourself those two questions, and never assume that people, want to promote up. Some people are very content where they are. So you've got to have discussions with them. You've got to make it a part of your annual appraisal reviews, to revisit that. Because like I said, some of them may not be ready to make the change now. It doesn't fit into their schedule. They've got family obligations or whatever. And so that no may not be a no, it's just a not now.
No, right now.
Right, no right now, not a no forever. And so you don't want to just assume everybody's going to do that and then start preparing them to take over when they're totally not interested at the time. But like I said, go ahead and revisit that on occasion. The other thing is not to overlook your people who aren't necessarily in higher positions, but those who are your Tech 1s or Tech 2s or less senior employees who may have certain talents that you could then capitalize on and enhance as well. So even though they may not be have the years of experience and so forth in order to take on another position, they still might have certain skills that they brought from their own either private employment before, their job experiences before, or maybe their location. Maybe they came from big city to your small town or vice versa. So everybody has different perspectives and different views, and they are able to bring that to the table. And those things are just as important as the technical as well. So you want both in order to bring them up into higher leadership positions. Look out into your workforce and look for diversity. Those things that make people different also make them unique. And so it gives them a different perspective and different information, different, what's the word? Perspective, I guess is a good enough word, but they're able to bring things that you don't notice from your perspective. They have that what is that, DISC, personality thing where you've got all the different the perspectives and abilities. And oops, sorry. And so if you only have like A-type personalities on your team, then you're going to miss a lot because you're going to be making decisions, at the drop of a dime. And sometimes you got to think things through, right? You can't just make a rash, quick decision. So you need a well-rounded team and a well-rounded perspective as you move forward with your plan for succession. And then utilize whatever resources are available to you in your workforce. Get to know your people a little better. Find out, things like hobbies and other skills that they might have that they could bring to the table. So, David?
Naka and I did this presentation in Indiana at the Indiana Biomed Society, and we kind of got a lot of input from the crowd and people that were there. But one of the things we were talking about there was people with kids. They might have younger kids now, so maybe they have a lot of stuff that they're busy with, like soccer practice, whatever, piano, whatever stuff that kids do. A lot of kids are into different things. But as those kids get older, maybe that same person, is the perfect person for that job, but they might not have been when they were younger because they just had too much other stuff in their life at that time. And what I've seen in my experience, it seems like a lot of people that have kids are also good managers. If their kids are good kids and good, well behaved, I mean, usually they, it kind of transfers over. I know it's not something you can ask during an interview question. Do you guys agree? I heard you laugh over here. Have you seen that? A lot of people that I've seen, their kids kind of reflect on them, and if their kids are good kids, usually that person has probably done a pretty good job of managing their kids, and they might do a pretty good job of managing other people. And another thing Naka said, Indiana Biomed Society. If you want to get into management and you're not, maybe at work, you're not doing a management role or not stepping into that, advancing Biomed Society. We have here in California, CMIA, but a lot of states where I live in Colorado, we have CABMET. It's a good way to develop your leadership skills in a volunteer position. And I just went to their conference, their annual conference. How much planning and work did that take? The skills you used in your job that you actually used in the, Naka kind of did it back the other way around. He's already in management, but then worked in the Biomed Society. But you can work Biomed Society, and you also meet people in the Biomed Society. So you might be stepping up, you know, networking while you're doing that, and they might see you in the Biomed Society role. I used to be the president of CABMET, and I used to get quite a few offers. Dave, you know what? That was when I was younger. Now, but then I'm old. Like people are like, Dave's not going to be around that much longer, so we don't want to. But I guess I still get offers. But I mean, it's a good way to network too, and it's a good way to build your leadership skills. And I know our president that we had, she just stopped being president this last year. The very first symposium she did, she messed up a lot of stuff. And I was a previous president, and I called her and I said, her name is Letitia. I told her, Letitia, don't worry about it. You know, you're okay. You know, it's a learning curve. You know, and she was just very upset because I think one of the things she did was like a hotel like this. She booked X amount of rooms, you know, like for the discount that we got at like our Biomed Society rate. Well, she didn't realize when she booked the rooms that if no one rented them, then we had to pay for them. So yeah, you ran across that, Tony, before? Yeah. So she was very upset about it. And I was like, called her, you know, Letitia, don't worry about it. We have the money. You learned something, you know, you're not going to do that again. I guarantee that, you know. So she was very upset, but having someone that has your back kind of also goes a long ways in developing those people. And I felt like that was kind of my job as, you know, former president, but same thing kind of goes at your work. If you know that someone, I was again in the women in HTM, sorry, yesterday, Ashley, she won the manager of the year. I don't remember her last name, but she was talking about, she kept all her stuff close, you know, and she did everything for the team, and she did it, but she noticed that now she's like distributing stuff a little bit more, and she's handing things out to other people and letting go of her grasp a little bit. And then as you do that, you can kind of see those people grow a little bit too. And I think that's like another slide that we have a little bit later on.
Yeah,
so
and what are the benefits? Go ahead, you were going to ask.
Yeah.
I've seen situations where I've put tech 1, tech 2, but I think I'm just going to stick with the tech because it's really not but being able to dole out some things like Ashley was saying, give them a little bit of a taste of it.
Yeah, were you in that presentation too yesterday? Yeah. Introduce them a little bit at a time, huh? To the job, yeah.
And don't run around the office complaining about your job, because nobody's going to want it after, right? But yeah, and each one of those positions with these biomed associations or volunteer type groups has its own skill set that they're able to learn. You know, when you're the secretary, you're taking notes, you're doing minutes, and you know, so that teaches you how to develop policies and procedures and how to document things and so forth. And with the treasurer, you learn about budgeting and meeting, you know, your budget and financing, and so all of those things then can carry over into management, right? As being the president, you're doing a lot of public speaking, and so your communication skills and so forth are being honed. So even as they rotate out through all of the different positions, they're gaining valuable upskills that we talked about that will transfer over into the management arena or senior position arena. And one of the things you're going to want to do is document all of that in their employee records, so that you know who has what experience in what areas and who has what skills and so forth. So that'll help you a lot. According to yet another Gallup poll, 3 of every employee feels that they're not reaching their fullest potential at their current positions. Those employees often possess talents and skills that are underutilized due to the limitations of their current role. So find those employees and help them utilize those untapped skills and talents. So here's a list of just a couple of those upskill talents that we talked about: communication, product management, customer relations, project management, budgeting and forecasting, and performance improvement.
And there's probably a lot that can be added to each one of those, but
Tons of
since
them.
we only have an hour
This
here.
is just a short list
Yeah.
of the different ones that, they're all part of your succession plan and should be included as a means for them to acquire knowledge, either directly from you or maybe a senior leader of your team. And, you know, now with internet learning, there's a lot of other opportunities. LinkedIn has some great courses that you can suggest to them that they can take to better enhance their skill sets and so forth.
And like what we were talking about, that Biomed Society thing, you can see some crossover things there that run a society, right, Tony? I know Tony was the California president. That's why I keep referring to Tony, CMIA. But yeah, you kind of use all of those in the Biomed Society. Huh? So it's like a way to show your leadership skills, maybe not only to your boss, but other bosses too that are looking for someone. So that's always a good development thing to volunteer. I know you don't get paid for it, but there's maybe other perks down the line.
Right. You're building your future. Oops, I don't think that's I guess, okay. And so, and then some people, like I said, the fifth one was that they didn't have a succession plan at all. So they've got to start from the ground up and build a whole plan, because not having a plan is not an option. So one of the first steps that we found in building our succession plan was to, one, elicit potential candidates; two, meet, review, and plan with them; three, execute the professional development plan that we had established; and then four, create short-term trials, assess the situation and review, and then add the whole methodology to our hiring strategy.
I was going to say something about one of those.
Go ahead.
When I was talking to Naka about planning this one, really, Naka had a lot to say about that one. And he said one of them was like, when people are on PTO or people are out on like extended leave or something like that, maybe you can have a person that you've identified to be that next succession person to fill in for that person and do a little bit of their job at a time instead of just dumping the whole thing on them at once. And then you can see how they do in that role and go from there. I mean, not that when you're out, you don't want to lose your job if you're the person that's out on medical leave or whatever the case may be, PTO, but it might just be as small as doing like environment of care rounds in the department, you know, like with the department leaders and walking through there, just small, or maybe a committee meeting or something like that, small as a trial run, and see how they like it.
Yeah, and those are only, you know, short-term opportunities, but it'll give them the kind of hands-on experience that they're going to need. So maybe you've been teaching them about how to do rounds and so forth. You've been bringing them into the EOC meeting, letting them sit in and hear how the whole operation works and what everybody goes over and all the information that's shared. And then, like you said, you know, you then so-and-so is out for a couple of days, or they have to be out for a week or two. Then you bring them in and you watch them and you let them experience it. You monitor what they're doing, and then you give back feedback. You know, they want to know, did I do well? Did I do well? What do I need to change or develop more in, and how can I be better at doing this job? And then you share that with them, and that's what that short-term trial assessment and review talks about. So when you're looking for candidates, outline the stages of the development and what is going to be expected as far as this person. Once you've established the skill set and the knowledge base that they now have to acquire in order to move into that position, how are we going to achieve that? What OEM schools are we going to send you to? What cross training are we going to have done with that other person that's leaving, that possibly, you know, in 2 years or whatever is leaving that position? Or what can we get through maybe an ISO training like RTSI or RSTI, sorry.
Well, I want to throw a little something in to connect. Earlier when you said, you know, some people maybe not right now, not interested, but maybe in the future. A way to connect that portion to this is I like to do one-on-ones. So like, you know, I do it regularly because if you do it once a month, you might forget about something, or you might miss where someone changes their mind. Doing it on a regular basis, like every week, every other week, allows you to stay in touch with where they are. And so that helps not only with finding people that would be interested in, the short-term, you mentioned like sending you on for EOC rounds or stuff like that. You can identify people that want that, but on the other side, I've found good leaders know when they have employees that are on their way out, like you're aware.
So you can start planning.
Where everybody is, right? I mean, just to have an idea, like to understand your team and who where everybody is. So there are some people happy where they are; they'll go until retirement in that role. Some people want to move up. Some people want to move out for whatever reason. And so, being aware of your team and where everybody is kind of, for me, like I feel like I'd be flying blind if I didn't do that.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, finding out people's whys is very important as well. Why did I become a biomed, or why did I get involved in this industry? Why am I still here at this place? Why do I want to stay here? And once you understand their why, then as far as motivating and incentivizing people, that'll just come naturally, because you'll know what it is that they need and want in order to move forward. And if you do find people, maybe they do want to leave, but why do they want to leave? Where's the dissatisfaction? What is it that can be changed to get them to stay and be a part of what you're doing at your facilities, So having these I don't know how often you have them, but if you have one-on-ones, that's a great opportunity. If you don't, then you should establish them, and you just do them however often you can. Not everybody can meet with all 50 of their employees on a weekly basis, but not all of us have 50 employees. So, it just depends on your particular situation, how frequently you're going to have that one-on-one. But thank you for sharing that. That's a great idea, David.
Have you guys ever dealt with that teammate that really wants that role, that responsibility, but
has no talent whatsoever?
They're not the right person for
No,
that
they
job.
it's right person, right time. That's the way these things always work. But sometimes there's somebody who's just very enthusiastic and they're a go-getter and they just want to do, and they want to be a part of it. They want to be in the room where it happens and so forth, but they're just not ready for it. And so it's hard to kind of get them reeled back in. But if you establish a plan, if you say, okay, if that's really what you want, this is what you need to do over the next 2 years, or however long you feel that they need to fulfill both the years of experience and the job description. Then let's develop this plan. Let's get you situated. Let's get you in this class, that class, and you build it into their annual review, so that you then once a year you're going through. Okay, did we accomplish that? How was that school? Did that work out for you? So. And because then it's a part of a written plan, like David said, you can just check mark, tick, 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 and it's like, okay, well, now he's ready. And so now you can offer that position if it is. And one of the things too with these development plans is you have to make sure that they understand this is not a guaranteed promotion. Just because we trained you in all of this and have developed you to take on that role does not necessarily mean that you will be taking on that role. There's lots of things happen in companies all the time. There's restructuring, people get laid off, some positions become eliminated. So because of that, at least they will be ready for a position similar to that one that you prepared them for, if not the one that you actually prepared them for. What if that employee decides, oh no, I'm going to stay here another 5 years, then it's like, okay, well, they're going to stay, so the position's not there. But if there's a position in another location for them to fill, then they're already ready to go. But because you've done that, you better make sure that the other person right behind has been trained up to take that person's job and to fill in for that role. So that's how this whole succession planning thing works, is having everybody in preparation for the next position. We recently had a hospital chain in Fort Wayne where after 35 years as director of the hospital network, he retired, but everybody knew 3 years ago that this was going to be happening. So they all got all their ducks in a row, the managers, the supervisors, and they all had their succession plan and training and their objectives and set, so that over the past 3 years, they had all been taking classes and getting more experience and going to more meetings and so forth, and becoming more involved in the hospital politics and what was going on, so that when March 1st came, and he, you know, took his last hurrah, everybody was able to move up. You know, manager became director, supervisor became manager, lead tech became supervisor, and senior tech became lead technician. So everybody was set and ready to go. Not everybody, you know, has plans like that, but that's hopefully what we want to do. We want to develop our business model so that we have that plan ready to go, so that everybody is moving up into position. So you don't have, so then you can bring on a tech one, because it's, I don't know about here, but it's a lot easier to find a tech one than all these other specialties and senior technicians with years of experience.
Yeah, we always like to promote from within. But one thing about not a guarantee of program is also not always a guarantee of more money. Because a lot of people like want to work in that job temporarily. Well, I'm not getting paid any more money to do that, so why should I do that? And you know, like it's kind of the carrot dangling in front of the horse, you know, and like I'm doing all this stuff, but I'm not getting any more money. Sometimes that's a downer, I guess, for those people, but to know that there's going to be more money in the future if you do this is kind of the bigger picture idea of looking at that. But have anybody seen that before? I see people nodding. Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and yourself, yeah.
So
and whether it's at that place where you're at now or some other place. Another thing I was going to say too is, has anybody heard, like a lot of the time when people leave a job, it's because of management, not because of they're not happy where they work at. A lot of the time it's the leader or management. Yeah. And I mean, that's unfortunate, but that's how, like, why a lot of time why people leave is because they're not happy with the direction the ship is going, and they say, I'm going to go off here and the grass is greener over there, and try to jump ship and go get another job somewhere else, and maybe do that next step up. So, because they know they're not going to like that 35-year guy. If you're 30 years, you know, and you're hoping to get to that next position, maybe you need to go somewhere else because you're still gonna have to wait for that guy to retire.
Yeah.
I have a question.
I didn't want to say that, but
Well.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't really check the boxes.
You have to go to the different levels. Yeah.
I don't want to bash young people, so I mean, I want to I want to say I know a lot of really young people that are really awesome, and I mean, I really have a lot of respect for them, and I learn even from the young people that I work with every day. And I don't want to say anything. I mean, but it's kind of generalizing, but not everyone's like that. But I think if you work at a place maybe where you can have like a time card code that you like, say they have like a code that they put in 1 hour a day they did, like a leadership position, maybe they get paid some kind of differential. That person's happy, they're getting that differential, but at the same time, they're telling their coworkers, hey, you know, I'm not getting like a little extra pay when I go to this, do this, that. Maybe encourages other people to kind of step up their game a little bit too. I know not all workplaces can do that, but ideally that would be the way to kind of build like that. And you know, you think word gets around when either good or bad, and if people talk to each other at work and they're like, man, I filled in for Dan for this meeting, and I just sat there, you know, in this meeting, wrote some notes down and followed up with them afterwards, and I got paid 15% extra on my, you know, for that 1 hour a day or whatever it was. So I mean, if that works in your workplace, that would be great, but I know not all workplaces have that. But that, like, that money thing is, like you said, is very important to young people, and they'll all talk to each other, and then pretty soon you might have more than one person wanting to do that job because they want to get that extra money too.
Yeah, I worked for an employer at one point that, yeah, they, if you filled in for the team lead, you were in charge for the day, but you got paid $1 an hour more. So I was like, woo-hoo,
that's like, that's what our charge nurses get where I work at. They have like a charge nurse code, and they put in like however much they get paid extra money for being charged for the day.
Yeah, and so these are some of the things that we kind of talked about as far as executing your professional development, whether you're going to give OEM factory training, tech-to-tech cross training, job rotation, mentorship, and job shadowing. These are all different opportunities for you to utilize either yourself, your staff, your senior staff to help bring people along in their development plan.
Not since Lisa's in the room. Don't you have a course that you're doing with Amy on leadership development through College of Biomedical Equipment Technology? Okay, I thought I saw it.
There you go.
Yeah, it's how long is the course? So if you have someone that you identified in your department, talk to it's through Amy though, right? It's, and you guys are the
Yeah.
teachers of it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Kind of like,
and
Zaka's commercial or Naka's commercial. Yeah, I
yeah,
think
if you're fortunate enough
I've gotten
to
the
have
Amy last email.
school like this in your state, please support them with everything that you can, whether it's volunteering or, you know, to do something to help out at a job fair or whatever, and send students, you know, right? Because in Indiana, all of our major universities have finished or closed off their biomedical engineering programs. We have one university, University of Indiana, that is finishing out the last 2 years of their program. Once those people are graduated, that's it. So they're no longer producing any more biomedical engineers.
We have 0 in Colorado.
in
right.
Indiana.
Do you think that's because of lack of instructors?
No, it's information. Nobody knows about biomedical engineering as opposed to structural engineering and other types
IT.
of engineers. So those programs are still in place. It's just the biomedical engineering program that's
We are
dying.
moving to automation. That's another
Mhm,
reason.
mhm.
Maybe some of the people have more information, they don't want to invest in other fields. That might be one of the reasons,
Sure.
but I think it's needed.
Yeah, so the more that we can get the word out to people about who we are and what we do and how important we are in the hospital environment, then, you know, maybe we'll see a resurgence later on of schools and programs, biomedical. Thank you very much. That's why I come here to poach them. I've already picked up 2 resumes to take back with me. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's all about with this succession
You
planning.
can get there. It's just not the first day.
So how many of you believe that employees like to feel valued? Yeah. That they desire connection, that they want to be challenged, and that they need to be recognized, right? Well, providing your employees with various opportunities to build on their strengths, learn new skills, as well as preparing them for the future needs of your company demonstrates all of these qualities, in a tangible and meaningful way. It also validates to them that they play an important role in the success of your company. According to a recent Gallup poll, when employees feel that kind of connection, they tend to be more engaged. I don't know if your company does this, but every year mine sends out this employee engagement survey, right? They want to know how we're doing that. Well, you want your employees to be more engaged. This is a great way to do that, to get them to be more engaged. And the companies benefit through improved retention and stronger bottom line. It'll not only strengthen their loyalty to you as a leader, but also improve their commitment to the organization. So like I said, when you're doing short-term trials, you don't want to wait till you're, you know, in the midst of a crisis or anything and say, oh yeah, come help us, because then that's like the worst time for them to try to, you know, utilize these newly learned skills and be a part of what you're trying to do. But if you do it during extended illnesses or family leave, sick day, vacations, those are great short-term opportunities to give them that chance to use what they've learned, and to also gives you the opportunity to assess where they are in the process and how much more education and training they need to get them to where they want to get to. You had a question or a comment? Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing up that point about ownership. Yeah, when people own things, you take care of them, right? If you're renting or borrowing, sometimes you don't always take as good a care of something as when you own it, you know. So getting your employees to buy into that. Some hospitals, they call them subject matter experts, right? SMEs, you know. And so it may not be a specialty that, you know, they're going to get paid anything more for, like, you know, I don't know, imaging or something like that, but they seem to know this equipment really, really well. And so make them the SME, you know, the go-to person, and feed into that so that they take ownership and they grow in their confidence in what they do and how they present themselves and their product and so forth. And so by doing that, again, that's upskilling, you know, those aptitudes within them to take on future leadership positions.
Well, it helps them too, because the peers now come to them
Right.
for advice on that.
So they're feeling respected and so forth, So yeah, it adds a lot to that employee's confidence level and so forth. So where we're going with this, but yeah. So engaging and motivating your successors would also involve bringing them into decision-making processes and vision setting and problem solving within your organization. So when you have those meetings that you go to, bring them along, have them sit there and observe what's going on, what's happening. This is how we do business. This is how we solve this problem, or this is how we cast a vision for our future as an organization. This is the thought process. These are all the things that we have to think out and plan and strategize for, so that they're a part of that experience before turning over the responsibility to them. So, you can't just say, okay, you went to this class and you went to that class, you're a yellow belt now, so go ahead, here you go, here's the keys. You can't, you don't want to do that to them either. So and then finally, identifying the talent gaps, not only between the senior position that you're wanting to fill, but the backfilling of that person's, the person that will be leaving to take on that role, them and the next person. What's the talent gap that exists between those two people as well, so that everybody gets trained up in the same time frame, so that they're able to move up, keep good records as far as all of the training and the upskill lessons and opportunities and so forth, offer feedback and support and recognition. Once you know their why, you know how to recognize them, you know what's going to make them happy. It may be the $1 an hour, or it may be a gift card to Costco's, I don't know, whatever it is. It may be, being recognized as the SME, and being designated the go-to person. Whatever it is that is their why, you fulfill that through your recognition program. Anybody have any thoughts on those?
Well, so the recognition thing, I moderated a group about ageism a couple years ago, and it was an interesting discussion. I know we talked earlier about generational, uniqueness, and I feel like recognition falls into that. And that some of the newer generations want to be praised and recognized on a regular basis. Some of baby boomers are like, hey, do my job. Like, don't stop me doing my job to tell me I did a good job. I wanted to do it. And so
Just part of the job.
yeah, that's exactly. And so I that's kind of where like the equality versus equity comes into play. Not everyone has to be treated equal, because not everyone wants the same thing, but equity, we want to give them what they're looking for as far as recognition. So you have to, but that's also where the one-on-ones show up, is to understand your employees of what they're looking for in recognition. It may make sense in your shop to have a Biomed of the month, Biomed of the year, to recognize them and maybe causes them to compete with each other and work harder, or it might cause them some animosity and to dislike each other and get angry, be embarrassed that they couldn't perform like someone else. And so it's about understanding your team and the recognition levels that everyone is expecting or hoping for, what'll drive them, as opposed to kind of driving them away.
Yeah, there was a book that came out a couple of years ago, probably decades now, called The 5 Love Languages. I don't know if anybody's ever heard, but it's, again, it helps to understand people and personalities and how we all have different ways that we like to be appreciated and show love. And some, there's I think it was words, so those people who like words, they would want a card or an email. They're just showing, I appreciate everything you did today, or, thank you very much for what you did and so forth. Other people, it's gifts, sorry about that. So, they have gifts, so, just kind of give them a gift every once in a while, do that. Other people, they just like a pat on the back, they call it touching, meaningful that, tap on the, good job, like the one that don't stop me from doing what I'm doing, just go ahead, good job, and keep on going. So knowing your people's language that they speak as far as when it comes to recognition, appreciation, that's kind of what you want to to do. I think we're getting the cutoff here.
Oh, that comes
But yeah, and basically that was it. Then it was just, again, evaluate your plan every year, make sure that it's still working, still relevant to your organization, your goals, your vision, and your present employee situation, and then just start it all again in the very next year. Make sure that you're following up with your people, that you're meeting, you're doing your one-on-ones, your annual appraisals, you're reviewing, you're recognizing, you're appreciating, and keeping records to make sure that everybody's on track to where they want to be. And hopefully everybody will stay with you and be successful and move up the ranks and